Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sree Sreenivasan. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism and founder of Digimentors, a social, digital, and virtual events consulting company. It is my honor to convene this global conversation every day. Today is episode number 80. We've been on lockdown for 80 days in New York. We've been here every single day, and you've been with me so many of those days. So many of you have said this is an uplifting show. So many of you have said this is a lifeline for you during this pandemic, and I can tell you this is a lifeline for me. This is uplifting for me. That's why we do it. Show number 80 turns out to be the most important we have done yet. Why? Because my beloved country, America, is on fire. People are angry. People are so upset about the racial inequality, the economic injustice, and so much more. And we're going to talk about all of that today. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Twitter. We're live on YouTube. And we're live on LinkedIn. Please find me on those platforms and please hit share right now. Please tag a friend, someone who would benefit from this conversation. And please, if you're watching, tell us where you're watching from, and please ask questions of our guest today. There has never been a more important conversation that we can have than the conversation we're about to have today. First, let me tell you who our guests are, and we'll bring them on to meet with you in just a couple of minutes. We have three fabulous guests. Keisha Center is going to be with us. She's at Keisha Center. And she is the CEO of the Solution Center with an S, and she is putting together a digital convening to address inequality. We'll also be joined by Adam Serwer, staff writer at The Atlantic, who wrote the most important story that explains 3 years of the Trump administration, and he has now written an article that explains these 3 months of the Trump administration. And we're joined by Sunny Slaughter, vulnerability expert, my friend who is at Sunny_Slaughter. I want you to find these folks on social. Please follow them. Please share this show. We want your friends around the world to join us. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I'll come to them in just a moment. We want to make sure you have a moment to share this. I also want our guests who are waiting patiently backstage to share this with their friends. We can only do the show because we have sponsors, and I want to tell you about one of our sponsors right now. Muckrack Academy and I have gotten together to do something about a little bit to help people in this time. We wanted to upgrade everybody's social media skills. We've seen the power of social media for good and bad, and we want everybody to have the same skills. More than 3,000 people have already signed up for my free certification course that you can take from anywhere in the world. Please take a photograph of this or take a screenshot and send this to a friend, mrac.co/social. Take a photo, forward this to a friend, mrac.co/social. And this is aimed at journalists and public relations folks, but everybody can take it. Any age, anywhere in the world, any background, any experience. It will launch in mid-June, and you will learn a lot, I promise you. My friend Linda Bernstein and I are working very hard on this project, and you are going to learn a lot. A big, big thanks to our friends at Muckrack who are making this possible for us to offer this for free around the world. They are sponsoring this show in part so that this can be free and available to all of you. I also want to give a shout out to my dear colleagues at Digimentors, my company that is doing all this work to bring people online, to put together virtual events, to connect with the world. And we take your in-person events and put them online. We can build your own talk show like this. We can help you. We can be 10% of your production team or 110% of your production team. Just email me, sree@sree.net, sree@sree.net, if you would like to talk to us about this. My motto, don't cancel your conference without talking to me. And finally, I just want to tell everybody what an amazing day I had this morning. It started by my team, our Digimentors team, hosting the world's largest gathering of teachers, 100,000 plus registered teachers on an online conference called T4. And you can go to t4.education to find more about it. It was a global conversation with education rock stars such as Malala's father, who he himself is a teacher, and so many other folks. And it gave us a chance to give a shout out to teachers around the world. That conference didn't exist till April 24th when the idea was born, and we went today live in English, Spanish, and Arabic around the world from 88 countries and 25 speakers. We were able to do that, and we want to help you do that. Then this afternoon on my WBAI show, 99.5 FM, WBAI.org, progressive radio here in New York, I got to interview the great Kimberly Crenshaw. She's the one who coined the term intersectionality. And we laughed a little, we cried a lot as we talked about what's happening in this country today. So it is perfect for me to be able to end this day by having this conversation where we're going to meet these very important folks, these very important voices as we describe and try to understand a horrific week in America. Keisha Center, Adam Serwer, and Stony Slaughter. And they're about to come on stage, and I want to thank them all in advance for being here. Let me just say hello to each of them. We want to give them center stage first, and then we'll put them together. Let me start with Keisha Center. Hi, Keisha.
Hello. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you for being here. I ask all our guests, how are you doing? Where are you right now?
I am in Los Angeles, and I'm feeling very emotional today, as over the last week, and also inspired by some of the work that I see that people are doing on the ground. So I'm really excited to hear from Adam and Stony and you as well of what we can do, and just really emotional of seeing and watching television and reading and social media of what's happening in the country.
And in terms of your work, if you could give us a little bit about Spectrum Virtual.
Virtual, yes. So Spectrum is fantastic convening that we put together, and we be in social capital markets. And it was birthed out of SoCap last year, and we hosted it for about close to 300 multicultural leaders from all across industries and sectors to really think about how do we come together to create an inclusive impact economy. And we had 3 days of a dynamic speakers, dynamic action, and networks that were being built. And we were excited to go back to Atlanta, even though it's in Atlanta, which is the birthplace of so much change and movement and history. It's a national conversation, which we can see right now. Racial disparities, inequality, and injustice is a national conversation. But we were rooted in Atlanta, Georgia, and we were planning for it. And then COVID-19 happened, and we made the shift. And I think that a shift that's going to allow even more people to come with us, come along on the journey where we're not constrained by physical limitations of a building, but now virtual, you can enjoy from your home, you can learn from your home for 3 days that we'll do June 9th through the 11th online to really talk about the issues that are prevalent all throughout the country, but how do we bring people of color, entrepreneurs of color, leaders of color closer to capital? And we were planning to have this conversation and talk about how do we close the racial equity gap. We've been planning this for the last year, and then COVID happened. And so we saw the need to continue this conversation because the problem was there. And now we've placed COVID-19 and we've placed injustice on top of an already shaky foundation. So I can't think of a better time now than what we're planning and the conversations we want to have.
Thank you, Keisha. Let's go to Adam Serwer. Hi, Adam.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
How are you feeling? Where are you? How's your family?
I am currently at home in San Antonio. We are obviously, like everyone else, watching the news and being very concerned about everything that's happening, which is, of course, happening in the midst of a global pandemic, and one in which, has already killed 100,000 people in the United States. So obviously, it's a difficult time for everyone right now, and there's obviously a great deal to be concerned about.
And I tell everyone, as you know, Adam, that you wrote one of the most important articles about the first 3 years of the Trump administration, and now you've written one of the most important articles of the last 3 months. What are you working on right now?
I'm working on a couple of things. I have a book of essays that I'm working on, which is titled after the piece that you mentioned, "The Cruelty Is the Point," which is a collection of essays about the Trump era. And I'm working on a piece that about what's happening right now, about the, I think, when you look at what's happening across the United States in these protests, I think you sort of have to remember that it wasn't simply the video of George Floyd that has sparked a lot of this. I mean, there was the killing of Breonna Taylor, who was in her apartment by herself. With her boyfriend asleep. Who a medical worker was killed by police because they got the wrong house. There was the Amy Cooper incident in Central Park where she tried to call the police on a black man, Christian Cooper, who asked her, to leash her dog, and she threatened to say that, an African American man was threatening her life. So I think there's just been a number of. I think what we're seeing right now is just like a collection of pent-up energy due to the pandemic, due to people being stuck at home, due to people losing their jobs and being in financially precarious situations, and due to seeing an accumulation of incidents involving police force, unjustified use of police force, in the past, just in the past few weeks, few months. The shooting of Ahmaud Arbery, which of course the authorities in Georgia simply decided not to charge the people involved until there was a huge outcry. And of course, these are issues that did not just start over the past 3 years. There are issues that are fundamental to the United States as a country, and the question of whether or not everybody is going to get the same kind of due process and justice. And what we've seen, since the beginning in the United States is that one group of people is entitled to a certain kind of treatment under the law, and another group of people is not. And I think so. When we look at what's happening, it is an eruption of so many different things happening at once, and things that began and have continued, throughout, administrations from both parties, because they're simply a part of the fabric of American culture and American law and American identity that we have not dealt with.
Thank you, Adam. I'm just going to go now to bring on my friend. We're going to go on and bring on my friend Sunny Slaughter here. Sunny, hello, Sunny. How are you? Tell me where you are and how you're doing, Sunny.
Hello, everyone across the world. I am Sunny Slaughter. I am in the DC area, specifically Maryland, and it has been a very long, painful, and sobering week of trauma, vulnerability, disruption, murder, and mayhem. I am a vulnerability expert. I am also a federally certified law enforcement instructor with the Department of Homeland Security, specializing in crimes against persons, domestic violence, human trafficking expert with DHS. I am also I specialize in hate and bias crimes. I have trained law enforcement across the globe. And what I saw earlier this week was murder. It was painful. And more importantly, I am a Black woman. I am a Black mother, a daughter, and I'm tired. Like everyone else, and everything that you see in America, no matter where you are, everyone can see what is happening. And when you talk about burning and looting, that is a accumulation and a compilation of pain that resonates for 400 years, and people have had enough. It was the video. It was the image. It was the 8 minutes and 46 seconds where we watched George Taylor cry out for his mother and say he can't breathe. We can't breathe. We cannot breathe. Black people can't breathe. I am the mother of 2 sons and 2 daughters, and I can't breathe because I know that when they leave from my home, that they are not safe. I train law enforcement. My oldest son's father is a police officer. We have police officers and armed forces that run in our family so deep. And this has just been a horrible week. We're in trouble. We are in trouble in America. And we cannot breathe. And this is enough.
I hear you, Sonny. We all hear you. And we're going to talk about all of those issues. And we're going to share and understand your pain and the pain of so many people. We're going to do one thing that we do on the show to show the world that we're all together. We're going to go on a global tour right now. I'm going to show you people watching from around the world as they say hello. Let's see who's here. We have Pratna is watching from Santa Clara in California. My cousin is watching. Diane Stefani is watching, and she's saying hello to Keisha Center. And we're glad that she's here with us. Pratna is saying hello to Sunny Slaughter, and Pratna says that she just saw Kimberly Crenshaw, Professor Crenshaw, just on MSNBC moments ago. She was on my show earlier today. And we just people watching from all over. My father's watching in Kerala, India. Hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad. He's been on before.
Yes, that's right. We get to see him. I get to see, or he gets to see me this way. And just an emblematic of how everything has changed. My good friend Jonathan Borski from Union Square has watched every single episode 80 straight times. And Lori Nasrallah is here, tuned in from Westchester. Akil is watching from India.
Yeah, we're connected now.
And Julia is watching from Maryland.
Hey, Julia.
And so many people are here from all over the world. We're just so grateful. Neil says, I wouldn't have missed this episode, particularly since you were on. Thank you for everything you do.
I love you, Neil.
And Ashok is watching from Mumbai. And Kimberly says, thank you for providing a forum for these strong, clear voices. We are just so grateful that everybody is able to be here. Robert Anthony is here, supporting you all from Brooklyn. Bob has been on my show 3 times and is just an amazing technology voice. Susanna's watching from Mexico. We have just people all over the world watching right now, and all of them are trying to understand the pain America is going through. So let me go to Keisha. Keisha, tell us how this week has unfolded in front of your eyes and in your heart.
You know, it has been extremely, extremely heavy. And in the point of where you are quarantined, where you are trapped in your homes, if you're continuing to follow the guidelines, and there's no escape. There's no escape because there is still a danger out there that is COVID-19 that is killing people daily that we cannot forget, and it is killing Black and brown people at rates that are ungodly, and that is still out there, and that is still a danger. I mean, you add police brutality, and you add racial discrimination and threats. Thank you for saying Amy Cooper and the threat. To watch that, it pains my heart. And then, so there is that, and then also doing this work. So, you know, it's not if all of us do this work, and this work is emotionally taxing. It's hard to show up every day, and even if it is your passion, to try to figure out ways to give voice and provide platforms for those who are not heard. And then when you're trying to do that work, you keep getting hit every single day with something else that is triggering. And then I would say the other thing is trying to find sense and make sense of that for your friends and your allies that want some explanation when you have yet to process what things feel like. This is what's funny, you know. I'm not a mother, but I'm an aunt, and I'm an aunt to my own nephew and then my friends, and to see the fear and the pain that it goes into your sons, and quite frankly, Black women in America are not spared of this. So to do that work, and then to also, for some of our peers and some of our allies that want to help, want to be able to understand what to do when you don't have the answers because you're still processing, right? And you're still living in this. So, I mean, that's how the week has unfolded for us. And like I said, you know, the work that I do with my clients and the work that I do with SoCap is around how do we have these hard, uncomfortable conversations?
Yes.
And so how do you plan for these hard and uncomfortable conversations when your feelings and when your emotions are still being processed? And as every day something else you get hit. So we were planning already to talk about COVID and how COVID was affecting business owners. Business owner, I've lost some of my clients, and so I haven't even had time to process what that looks like for me, financially, because I'm too busy doing the work at hand. And but then this happens, and then you see your country burning. You were completely right. Riots, I mean, I believe it was Martin Luther King's quote: "Riots are the language of the unheard." This is frustration. This is hundreds and hundreds of years of being pushed aside, being not heard, lack of power, and lack of voice. And so that's what we're seeing. And the thing that I see is I keep the television on and I was watching and reading. It's not just Black voices. These are people out in the street that are upset. And you've got unemployment at a high. You've got people dying, not understanding this, misinformation from the top down. And it's built up frustration. And we're not immune to that or sheltered from that in our homes. Actually, I feel like we're even more impacted by it. So that's how I've been feeling. That's how I've been processing. And then also being honest that I don't know if my feelings change every single day. And you deal with it every single day of how to show up and be present and work, but then also deal with the realities of what's happening.
Thank you, Keisha. You pointed out, as did Sunny, that this pandemic was already a crisis that was affecting Black and Brown communities in disproportionate numbers. And then comes this issue, and all these issues kind of come together. I'm going to go now to Adam Serwer from The Atlantic, who is with us. And I'm going to show his article as he speaks. The one, he's written so many, but the one that I want to point out right now is the article called "America's Racial Contract is," and the coronavirus was an emergency until Trump found out who was dying. And that's what the article that he wrote. Adam, tell us what you meant by this. The pandemic has exposed the bitter terms of our racial contract, which deems certain lives of greater value than others. You wrote this before this week, but tell us what this means, please.
So there's a philosopher, his name is Charles Mills, and he wrote a book called The Racial Contract. And what he means by the racial contract is he's referring to the racial contract as a kind of invisible subclause of the social contract. So, one of the ways I try to explain it is the Declaration of Independence says all men are created equal, right? But the racial contract says that doesn't apply to Black men. And that, at the time, that is really what that meant. When the founding fathers said all men are created equal, they absolutely did not mean Black men. So what the racial contract is it says the rules apply to some people in certain ways and other people in other ways. So, the beginning of that piece talks about the Ahmaud Arbery shooting in Georgia, where obviously Mr. Arbery was gunned down by two men who chased and stalked him because they thought he looked suspicious. And the local district attorney didn't see a crime there. He didn't think that there was anything wrong with that. And the men were ultimately not arrested until there was a big outcry that followed the release of a video that showed the killing of Mr. Arbery occurring. And so to look at, the social contract says murder is wrong. It says murder is illegal. But the racial contract says it's not really a crime if you kill a black man under these circumstances. And just to give it another example of that, the local prosecutor in that case, twice tried to prosecute a black grandmother who assisted someone with a voting machine because they were voting with the first time. So to him, when he sees a black man getting shot, that's, white man, that's not a crime to him. But when he sees a black woman helping another black woman try to vote, that's something that's worth prosecuting not once but twice. So when Charles Mills refers to the racial contract, we're talking about the kind of unwritten rules that say that certain people are protected by the law and other people are subject to the law. The way that this plays out, even in issues like COVID-19, is the disproportionate when the disproportionate ways in which communities of color were suffering as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, the tone of the conversation changed completely. It stopped being an emergency that demanded tremendous sacrifices from everyone. It started being those people's problem. And what's interesting about this, and this also applies to police brutality, it's not that most people who are dying of COVID are not white. In fact, the majority of COVID deaths at the moment appear to be white people. But once an issue is race, that is, once an issue is seen as a problem for those people, then other people, then certain people decide that it's not their problem anymore, even if it actually does affect people who look like that. It's not that white people are never killed by the police or unjustly killed by the police, but the sense that it is only a problem for black and brown people creates a kind of lack of empathy that makes those issues harder to deal with as a matter of social collective solidarity. Like, what are we willing to sacrifice as a society to solve this problem? And I think you can see that reflected pretty much everywhere with so many different things. Even the president's reaction to these incidents compared to, say, when a woman was murdered by a white supremacist in Charlottesville during a Klan rally.
Right.
I think we just, like, when Nixon ran on Law and Order, that was a sort of euphemistic term for responding to the disruptions of the 1960s with violent force. And when Trump ran on that same slogan, what he meant was, I'm going to use the mailed fist of the state against the people that you're afraid of. That is Latino immigrants, Muslims, black people in urban enclaves. This is my promise as president. And that appealed to a lot of people. And what we're seeing right now is that, this is a product of law and order. When you explicitly tell people that they are not protected by the law, that they can be punished, that they can be hurt by people who are supposed to enforce the law and enforce everybody's and protect everybody's rights. When you tell these people that their rights don't matter at all, you are legitimizing authority. You're saying that authority is not the result of an agreement that we've all made to live according to the rules, but that the rules simply don't apply to certain people. So, in particular, when it comes to police, the president himself it has said to police, you can rough up suspects and you want. Don't be too nice to them. He explicitly said publicly to the laughter of the police officers he was speaking to. Now, if you're someone who's looking at that says to you, the police can do whatever they want to me, and it doesn't matter. The president is encouraging them. And so what do I have to turn to? What if the system says that my life and my feelings don't matter? At a certain point, people are going to get desperate and they're going to do things that they shouldn't be doing. And so when you say law and order, and what you mean is some people get the boot and other people get a handshake, people are going to rebel against that system because it's unjust. So we shouldn't be surprised by what you're saying. That's not to say that what we're seeing is good. I don't think anybody's happy with what we're seeing on our television screens right now. But you cannot tell people that they are entitled to nothing but death if they find themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time, and expect them not to be angry or upset about it.
Thank you, Adam. I just want to point out that Professor Crenshaw said that there was a police officer killing in Minneapolis where there was money paid to the family, and that was when the white woman was shot by a police officer, if you remember that.
Yes.
And this is where you can look at similar cases and what happens with justice and what doesn't happen. Let's look at a couple of the comments coming in. Joy is watching from Singapore, and he says, very sad to hear the story. People are tagging each other. Adi Smith, this is so incredibly sad. We have multiple comments coming in. And Kimberly says, I read Adam's piece, and it seemed like one of the few articles that should be essential reading for all Americans during these turbulent times. I completely agree.
Yes.
And I now want to turn to Sunny, and I wanted to say this up front, but I neglected to do so. I feel like even though I'm a person of color, I am treated very differently in this country, except for a period after 9/11 when they looked at all people that they considered from the Middle East with suspicion. That was the only time I felt like the way a black man can feel every day in New York City. And so I approach this with great humility today. And
you should. I know.
I'm grateful to have you all here and talking, because the frustration that you all feel and the pain you feel is something that we also feel, even though we are obviously not affected the same way, and we care so much about everything you're going through. So let me turn to Sunny, and Sunny is going to share her thoughts and reflect on what she's heard so far.
So Sree, Adam and Keisha, I did the 1619 project for the New York Times read along that Sree leads. And I will say this before, on Tuesday, I went to Facebook Live for the very first time, and I started screaming. I was in so much pain after looking at the video. And I've seen a lot of things. I have been to crime scenes, homicide scenes, and this hit me in a way that I just can't even tell you. But I was on, and I was screaming, and I was hysterical. And Sree, I found out, was in a meeting or doing something, and he reached out to what we call our New York Times read along family, and said, Sonny's in trouble, find out what's wrong. And Neil started calling, and I couldn't talk. When you wake up every day knowing that something is going to happen somewhere, it is very painful. Before I saw the video, I was on Facebook. My nephew's is a police officer in Birmingham, and he was saying he had gone to school. He was in school. He had gotten good grades, and I was online, and I was saying, I'm so proud of you. And then I saw the video, and then I had rage. But before the evening was over, my other nephew, who just happens to be white, and he said, we stand with you. He doesn't know what to do because his son is biracial. He married my niece. They're having another baby. He has to have the talk. Black people grow up having this we call the talk. We all know what the talk is. And the talk is where we remind our children that no matter what you do, you are always Black. The very first thing, whether you have a job, whether you are both of your parents are first, not second. You always have a shield, no matter where you go to school, how you live, how you talk, how many letters you have behind your name. You're always Black first. You are always in danger. And I talked about when being pregnant, and when I gave birth crying, but I was crying tears of joy and pain because I know what can and may someday happen to my children. I told them, you're going to be called a nigger. You just be prepared and suck it up. Say your mother if you have to. But you will get called that. You will get told no because of the color of your skin. When you get pulled over by the police, you better know 10 and 2. You better know 9 and 3. Don't flinch. Don't shake. Don't move. Don't say anything that you shouldn't say. We don't tell our kids, just go out and be free. That's not something that we say. And when I say parents, I am talking about my children and my granddaughter, and there are villages, and not everybody in my village looks the same. They might not understand. All of you, the New York Times family, you're a part of my village. You might not understand the depth of my pain, but when you are silent and ignored, then you contribute to the depth and the deep scars that I have. I'm wounded. If you've never had handcuffs on, you don't know what they feel like I have. When at the same time, we are talking about COVID-19. Keisha talked about it, and Adam talked about it, and I do that work. I just finished my contact tracing. But if we're not murdered as Black people by law enforcement, if we're not murdered by the intersectional determinants of health, housing, and economic despair, and food insecurities, and poverty, and human trafficking, exploitation, all of those things that make us vulnerable in a different way than everyone else. We are the only people brought here in chains and still wear them 400 years later.
Thank you, Sunny. Here are comments. Neil says, we love you, Sunny. We're here for you. Kanika says, we're here for you. Neil says, exactly. Most, but not all, South Asians have more privilege than other Black and brown people. And I say to every South Asian who's watching now, who voted for President Trump only because of the taxes and thinks that the wall is a good idea and all of this other stuff, come get your boy. He's responsible for where we are today in part, but a lot of this goes back hundreds of years. But this moment is because of the leadership at the very top. And we have to acknowledge that. And we don't have that talk in my family. We don't need to. And that's the difference. A Black family living in my building, in the same building, has to have that talk with their 17-year-old son and daughter. And I don't. And that's the difference. Keisha, over to you.
You know, listening to Sunny just reminded me of, you know, the talk that we have, whether it happens more for Black men, but it happens for Black girls as well. I can remember, I'm from Kentucky, and you know, that is a state that it's different living in Kentucky than it is living in some parts of California and in New York and so on and so forth. It's not what happens in Kentucky happens all over the world, but it's a different way in which I grew up. And I remember my mom telling me as a young kid, if you ever get, when I started driving, if you ever get pulled over or a cop is behind you, do not pull over in a dark place. You drive slow, you put on your hazards, you go very slow, and you go, if you can come home. If not, go to a well-lit place. Yes. And you know, I really didn't completely understand that it was the talk. It was, do not get pulled over by the police by yourself as a Black girl driving in Kentucky.
Yep.
You know, and that, I don't believe that's a talk that my peers had that weren't Black, you know, and you show up, you show up differently. The way in which you navigate your spaces are different. And that is something that we are taught as a very young age. And the importance of that, and Sunny, tell me if you agree, is that I also find pride in the fact that I stand on the shoulders of those who gave me that talk. I stand on the shoulders of those who were stolen and enslaved, you know, and so therefore I feel as it always gives me responsibility and it always gives me pride to do the work that we do and to have the voice that I have. And I see being on this here with you, Sree and Sunny and Adam, as a privilege to be able to talk about these issues and to be vulnerable and to be honest and to be what we're doing with Spectrum, to build platforms. Like that has been my work. My work is as a professional to find ways to empower young people so their voices are heard.
Yes,
you know, we want people to be safe and we don't want people to destroy, but we want people that you have to show that your voice matters and you need to be, and I do believe that if we were marching and we're out there showing that this is not okay, we can't, you know, that, and we have to figure out ways in which we do that where we're safe and we're keeping ourselves safe, but where we are also showing that we can no longer just sit by. And standing on those shoulders of the people from my parents and my family to those who have done it throughout history, who have lost their lives doing this as well, that's a privilege, and that comes with pride. And I listening to Sunny just really resonates on that talk that we all have, that our parents have with us.
Thank you, Keisha. Adam, you have pointed out in an article that I have said is one of the landmark articles that explain the first 3 years of the Trump presidency, that when we say, boy, that's really cruel what they've done to African-American folks or children at the border in cages, and it seems so cruel, it seems so painful. You wrote an article that opened my eyes, where you said the cruelty is the point, that this is not an accident that we're seeing here. The cruelty is the point of President Trump and his supporters find community by rejoicing in the suffering of those they hate and fear. You wrote this in October 2018. If you were writing this today, Adam, how would you think about this? What would you need to change, if anything?
Well, look, again, you know, the Rosetta Stone to this moment is the president telling police officers to abuse their suspects and the audience of police officers laughing. You know, when that officer knelt on George Floyd's neck, Mr. Floyd the alleged crime was forgery. When he knelt on his neck, he was following the president's explicit advice.
Right.
You know, and the president has, you know, to his credit, said, you know, this was an unjust killing, and he's asked the Department of Justice to investigate. But this was a killing that was that occurred on the terms that he himself set. And in fact, you know, towards the end of the Obama administration, we saw a lot of these protests related to police violence. And one of the things the Justice Department under Obama did was it investigated these police departments to look at their practices and make sure that they were in line with the Constitution. Right. And what they found often was that there was a pattern of abuse, a culture of abuse that had emerged in some of these police departments that was destroying the relationship between the police and the communities that suffer the most from crime. And when you look at Ferguson, everybody was like, what is happening in Ferguson? And they found that the city had decided that the way to fund itself was to charge Black residents and to give them citations for things like manner of walking in roadway and for, you know, their weeds being too tall. Or there was the police force of Ferguson had treated the Black residents of Ferguson as a revenue fundraising base, essentially using them to fund the city because they didn't want to raise taxes on better off residents. And when Trump came into office, what Jeff Sessions, his first attorney general, said, we're not going to investigate any police departments anymore. We're not going to look for abuse because that is, quote, bad for morale. And when you combine the Justice Department saying, we don't care about the civil rights of people who are accused of crimes, and you have the president himself saying, you could treat these people however you want, I think it's funny and I don't care, you're going to end up with some people who are going to try and take advantage of that and are going to feel so invulnerable, so above the law, that they will kill a man on camera and not flinch. That's just that's just what's going to happen. It is a predictable result of that combination of things.
And we really have seen that,
Wow.
in this country, and it's so painful to think about it. I also wanted to mention another incident, which just like from a movie. Denzel Washington is driving down the street, sees a man wandering, gets out of his car. Denzel's wearing his mask, and he talks to the gentleman. The police come. It ends without trouble, and we have to rejoice that Denzel Washington saved a black man's life from being shot by the LAPD.
Yeah, he was homeless. The guy was homeless, and there was some kind of engagement with law enforcement who are not, unless they've had really de-escalation with behavioral health techniques. And well, as we can see, training really doesn't make a difference if they are the wrong person. That's why he really did probably save that man's life, because they do. That happens. It's ironic that I am a law enforcement instructor, federal, and I have trained a lot of people. But then I also work, my boots on the ground is so I can keep an eye on everything else that's happening in the jails, in the prisons. So I'm on the other side of social injustice when it comes to what's happening in our prisons, mass incarceration, and all of those things. And with the Physicians for Criminal Justice Reform, I'm one of their experts too, because if it's wrong, I don't care who's doing it. I don't care what they look like. Black officers who are guilty need to go to prison too. It really doesn't matter. But I think Adams every time he says something, his words really resonate. And what we have to change the narrative, and everything that he writes and everything that individuals like him write, and Sree, your platforms really have to elevate a message that is not always heard for everyone. And we have to put historical perspective on it, which is why words are going to matter. These platforms, your videos, everything that we say, because I'm from Trenton, New Jersey. The history that I heard and the history that I have come to know look differently.
Yeah.
We have people watching from all over, and Jonathan Borstein is in Union Square right now, and he's reporting
on the fires,
what's happening, helicopters overhead. And by the way, in New York City, we didn't have helicopters for the last 3 months because there was no traffic. So there were no traffic choppers. There were no news choppers in the air. And in the last 2 days, we've seen them as they're covering these protests. And so you're seeing that, and people are saying, please be safe. Pradnya saying racism among South Asians, my people, is real. And that's something that we have to definitely think about. Pradnya said she also lived in Kentucky for 9 years. There are counties I would not drive through by myself. And that is really upsetting to hear. Shiva said, extremely sad times, heart-wrenching to hear Sunny speak passionately of how gravely vulnerable African Americans, families, and young men still are 150 years after emancipation. I don't see how Mr. Biden can pick anyone but a strong, qualified African American woman as his vice presidential nominee. He has promised that it will be a woman, but we don't know who it will be and whether it'll be a woman of color or not. Keisha, what do you have to say on that?
You know, I think that there are so many qualified women right now that could be president of the United States, and are definitely qualified, and if not overqualified, to be vice president. And I do appreciate that there will be a vice president woman holding as his nominee, and I'm going to speak for holding office in the next 4 years. I believe that we need the right voice and the right person in the right connection to the community and on the ground work that will help us navigate through where we are. We're in a different time, and we are in different territory. As we watch and we see our country burning, we need people that are going to be able to be the voice of those who have felt unheard, be the voice of those who are needing to be seen and be empowered. And I do believe, as I said, there are so many women that are very powerful, but I do believe it is time for a person of color and a woman of color to hold those offices. As I said, I believe some of these women could even have been president, but we are where we are with their vice president now. And I want to see a woman of color, more women of color on the bench as well.
Yes.
So I'm hopeful that as we speak forth, that in 2020 there are going to be women of color in the highest office. There will also be women of color, hopefully, more women of color on the bench, and that is where I am. That's where I'm pushing. That's where I'm hoping. I fundamentally believe that people can't sit home and not vote after seeing all of this.
But
and I'm so sorry. Did I go out?
Please go on.
And I mean, I'll pause there because I would love for Sonny or someone else to get in, but I just believe that it has to be someone that is that understands and that hears and that is going to be instrumental in driving the change that we need to see on the ground, and then, quite frankly, in Washington.
Melissa says, yes, overqualified women are available in the United States. We have seen both in the president and vice president that there are no qualifications needed to be in those roles. Chandra Tyler disagrees. She says, I don't believe it has to be a woman of color. We just need a woman of integrity and concern for all Americans and systemic issues. So that's kind of interesting, another perspective there. We respect all views on the show. Adam, if I could ask you for a second, there are a lot of people who have watched the president's behavior these last 3 months, the mismanagement that has led to so many problems in this country. Candidate Trump promised us that he could shoot one person on Fifth Avenue and he wouldn't lose his base. He has now shown that he can be responsible in part for thousands of deaths, and he won't lose much support. But there are so many people who believe that this election is over, that Trump will lose, that Biden will win. I am not sure of that at all. What is?
I don't think that's. Yeah. I don't think that's true at all. I think that there's a long time before November, and I think that anybody who knows what's going to happen is lying. I think this. I honestly don't know how the events of this week are going to affect the election at all. Personally, I think it's an example of the fact that Donald Trump only knows how to make things worse. That's his only instinct. He doesn't know how to bring people together at all. He only knows how to feed the anger of the people who voted for him in the first place. Whether that's going to be enough to keep the presidency in his hands, I don't know. I think that it's very difficult to make any predictions about what's going to happen in November. And if there are people who support Joe Biden who think he has this in the bag, I think that those people are mistaken.
Yes, I agree. I absolutely agree. I think it is arrogant of anyone to think that Donald can't win and that Joe Biden can. And let me say this. So I am the first and youngest African-American in Jersey Attorney General's office for the Division of Gaming Enforcement. That means at 16 years old, I know who Donald is. I knew then. I managed and was responsible for all of the files on all of the casinos in the state of New Jersey, all of the criminal investigations. I was the youngest person to ever receive those high credentials and all of those background checks. So how he became president was interesting to those of us who know, but he is president. And I just think it would be absolutely a miscarriage of justice if people did not get out and vote who wanted to see something different, because there is nothing to guarantee. What's happening this week? Do you know there'll be somebody else that will die, that will be murdered before we get to November? Yeah, before their election, there'll be another Breonna. There will be another George Taylor. There will be another Ahmaud Arbery. There will be, because there is every single day something that happens that doesn't catch the lens of the national news. This is called the lens of the national news, but every single day in communities all across America, something happens. And we don't talk about it in this way. This is horrible. And we saw someone die, but we cannot be sidetracked that voting does not matter. And for those who can't vote, then they need to be the drivers. But we need to have informed voting. We need to have people who are not just informed about voting, but the things that impact us. They need to read the truth, because people are not reading truth. People are not sharing things in an accurate fashion. When you hear a story, you can read Adam's story, and then somebody else can print a story, and they can say, "Oh no, but that one is the truth. He's against our president." So we can't get comfortable. We can't rest on our laurels, and we can't think that there won't be another protest and another fire. And COVID-19 we have gone from talking about what was killing more than 100,000 people to burning and looting, and they're not even showing the data regularly. People are not even thinking about contact. We're planning on how to get back to work and not how we need to cover up. And I was an EMT. I went to part of paramedic school until I figured out they were allowing people to give you needles and stuff. I was not going to do that, but people don't know what they need to know. And they're not just Black, they're just people, all people. Citizens don't know. And when I say citizens, I'm talking about the people that are in America, whether they are here by legally, illegally. I don't like to get down with none of that either. I believe if you're here, that you're here. And Kentucky, I don't know if you know this, Keisha, but Kentucky has one of the largest population of refugees in the country. And they are displaced. They are displaced, abused, just uprooted, disrupted their same rights. And they come from all across the world. Refugees mistreated by law enforcement and others.
Yeah. Sonny, if I could just add and just champion what Adam is saying, and Sonny as well, is that what is happening here, what's happening with COVID, and we have to, in my opinion, continue to beat down the message that you have to come out. It is not guaranteed that Trump will not win again. And so that is going to require everyone, if it is not, to me, in my opinion, if it's not your person, your first choice, to come out and vote, because that is what is needed. We already see Trump trying to provide miscommunication about voting. And we need Adam's voice, we need Sonny's voice, we need the voices out there to really encourage for people for November, because it's going to be a hard road until November, and it's a long time.
Let's just tell people about your wonderful program, Spectrum Virtual. And this is a community on June 9th to 11th, 3 days of interactive conversations, an inaugural scholarship entrepreneurs program focused on actionable solutions to create an inclusive impact economy among leaders of color. How can people support this? Can they attend? Can they sponsor somebody? Can you talk about that, please?
They can do all of the above. Yes. So to attend, like you said, it's 3 days. And to attend, you can go to socialcapitalmarkets.net/spectrum and come on board and get it and join us for those 3 days. And what we have planned is 3 days of conversations, but not just conversations, actionable steps to drive change and to make a difference. And what I believe Spectrum has the opportunity to do, we're 2 years old. As I said, this year is our first time we have to be virtual. But what if we can create an economy that is truly inclusive and that is truly looking at how do we shift power? How do we shift power dynamics to really empower and provide power to those who are on the ground, those who are closest to the solutions, to entrepreneurs of color that are driving change and making a difference. And for 3 days, we bring investors, funders, philanthropists, innovators, authors, writers, students, and young people to the table to identify ways to work together. And as I said, we were already talking about the racial wealth gap. We see problems all across the map. We see that entrepreneurs of color, the funding does not go to them as much as it goes to peers who are white. Indigenous communities have the worst numbers for that. African Americans, followed by Latino, followed by Asian communities, are completely woefully underfunded. We see that investors need to do more by diversifying their platform, diversifying their portfolios, and not only diversifying their portfolios, but allowing for capital allocators to be diverse. I believe 1% of VCs are Black, 1% are Latino. How do you start getting more capital allocators that are diverse in order so they can start funding more entrepreneurs and programs that speak to the community? How do funders really start investing in entrepreneur leaders of color and giving them power and giving them voice, and people who have racial equity at the forefront of the work that they're doing on the ground? And quite frankly, and I'll go there, of leaders of color that are doing that work. Or leaders of color that are at the table of that work that is being done. And we need to fund that, because I'm a former funder, and sometimes we see that it's not always some of the people closest to the ground that are getting most of the money and the capital. And also looking at entrepreneurs that we can help them think about how to do mission-driven work. And they typically entrepreneurs of color, we see that the work that they do and the businesses they want to build are the businesses that speak to the disparities and the issues that they see in their community. How do we continue to help them understand that, help them understand how to talk to funders and investors, and then also help them understand to build a community? Because sometimes it's tools. It's not always just money you need. You need resources, knowledge, networks, people who sponsor you and advocate for you, and then individuals, helping the individuals understand, especially our individuals who are white, helping them understand how you can, this was a really great quote that came from someone before, how you can spin down your privilege and your power every single day. You're going to wake up to 100% worth of privilege, of white privilege. So how do you every single day create an opportunity to shift that power to a person of color? How do you allow someone, a person of color, to stand up and to have that voice at that, not allow, but you create a space where they have that voice at the table, where you bring them into the fold, where you take away your privilege and your power and give it to someone else that's at the table. And so those are the conversations that we had. It will be 3 days of talking about the creative economy. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the artists that will be at the table as well, because it's often the artists that, psychologists, and one artist told me the psychologists diagnose the individual, and artists sometimes diagnose the what's happening with our culture and our community. And so how do we create spaces where entrepreneurs and artists of color are funded and they're supported and they're seen? And these are the things that we'll be talking about through the lens of access, inclusion, and impact for 3 days.
Thank you. And look, Diane is showing that students with an EDU address can go and attend free socialcapitalmarkets.net/spectrum and we'd love everybody to go and see that and check that out. And we have so many people commenting here. Mark says we would love to be part of this in any way, Keisha. Any way I can help get the word out, he says. And I say to you, Keisha, in front of everyone, anything that I can do for you, please be in touch. We can think about ways to get more attention to this. I want to show Adam this comment from my colleague and friend Jennifer Lazarus. Says that everything is so fundamentally wrong. My 10-year-old niece is having nightmares about driving with her father, who is African American, and the police stopping their car, beating him up. She is terrified. How do you think about what you're going to tell your daughter as she grows up? How are you thinking about the talk that you will have to have one day?
Well, I think that, that's I'm sorry, that's just a heavy question, Sree. Hopefully the world that my daughter will grow up in will be a world that where these kinds of talks aren't necessary for anyone. But I think that, what I tell her, it's going to be to always.
That's okay, Adam.
To always be aware that her body is vulnerable in a situation, even with people who are supposed to be there to protect her. And it shouldn't be that way, but it's a reality that she's going to have to learn to live with and be aware of, and learn how to stay safe in the midst of. And hopefully she will.
Thank you, and I'm sorry to have put that on you, but thank you for sharing that. It just reminds everyone who's watching, who doesn't have to have that talk, that we have to spend down our privilege, as Keisha said. We have to do our part, and I am recommitting myself to that here today in front of everyone, because we all have to do this. And that means talking in our own communities to our own people who know no history of what it took for us to waltz in here as we did and be successful. Not every South Asian is successful. There are huge poverty problems in South Asian America, but it is much easier for a South Asian to succeed in this country than it is for a typical African American or Latino person. And we owe this country an understanding of that. We don't know the history. We're not taught that in the countries we come from. And here, it's not taught if you come here as an immigrant, joining a big corporation, who's going to teach you all this? They have no idea. And that's one of the problems. And I want people to attend all the training opportunities out there so that they can learn. It's already 10:08 and it's late for our guests. We could keep going. There's dozens of comments coming in. we were very grateful for this time. And I want to say to everyone that this little show that I have, this is the most important thing that I have done. And we hosted a show for 100,000 teachers today. This hour is the most important thing I've done today. And I am just humbled that you would all be with me and talk. Before we go, I want to do two things. And it's going to be very difficult, but I hope you'll bear with me. I'm going to read some names to you. We've said them multiple times. Each of us has said different names, but I'm going to say them because we have to say their names. And then I'm going to come to each of you and give you a chance to reflect, share, preach, cry, laugh. Because one of the things we also said when the virtual green room before we started, that we have to laugh, otherwise we'll cry all day. And we can do all of that. Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, who's at Sandy Locks, please follow her on Twitter. She was telling us the joke about justice or just us when you go down to the justice office. That's a Richard Pryor line. I'm going to read these names to you right now. And please bear with me as I do. We have to read them because we have to understand and we have to know. Botham Jean, Calvin Munnerlin, India Taylor, Natasha McKenna, Alton Sterling, Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, Walter Scott, Freddie Gray, Philando Castillo, Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner, Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, and that's just in the last few years, and that is not everybody. Just each one of those names is a saga. Each one of those names is an epic tale of cruelty, pain, and horror, is of families upended and destroyed. And those are just some of the names. Each of you know so many more. And if you heard some names today and you didn't recognize them, that's on you. Not my guest, but you, the viewer. If you didn't know those names, you should be intimately familiar with each of those names and what happened to them in this country. And we know it's well beyond this. It goes back so many decades. It goes back, of course, also to the Central Park Five. And this president, in the middle of a police investigation, calling for the execution of young Black and brown men. Totally unacceptable in this reality. He was not a candidate. He was just a New Yorker who talked too much. And we laughed at him. I made the mistake, everybody, from June 16th of 2015 when he came down that escalator. I laughed at him. I mocked him. I said, there's no way he's going to be president. And this Republican Party changed all its rules to bend everything to be his lapdog, and that's what they have done. So please forgive me for going on that rant. I'm going to go to each of our speakers and give them as much time as they would like to share their thoughts, as we have to, of course, let them go back to their families and continue to watch and mourn with the rest of us. So let me go to Keisha Center. Keisha, thank you so much for being here. I salute you, and I want to work with you. Keisha Center is on Twitter. You'll see her Twitter handle right there. Please write to her, please follow her, and please talk to her. Keisha, over to you.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you for this platform and this opportunity, and quite frankly, this space to be able to show up and continue to process the feelings and the emotions that I have. And I want to thank Adam for your words and your truth to paper that you were doing. I can't tell you how many times I've shared your article, so it's great to be here and share the same space with you. And Stony, your authenticity and your vulnerability and your truth, I'm learning from all three of you all, and hopefully sharing things that are helpful as well. And when we were talking about this and still trying to figure out the words, and you reading those names, I actually have those names hanging up in my house because I don't want to forget. I don't want to forget the dreams that were snatched away, the families that were disrupted, the hopes and the dreams that ended. The fact that these people wake up every single day doing these people woke up every single day doing what Americans and what people feel as if they have the right to do, and they don't, and they didn't. And their life ended because of that. And I don't want to I can't take tomorrow for granted. I can't take this day for granted because it is not promised in this country. And we continue to see that how Black and brown bodies are put on the media and how they're killed and how they're abused. And it seems that no regard for life and no regard for who they are and their humanity. And so I am still processing. And I am thankful for a community of friends, a community of believers and even co-workers that allow me to process that and allow me to figure out how the best way I can show up. And all I can say and all I can hope and believe is that there will be some change. That list that you read, we can add Emmett Till to that list. We can add so many people that we've learned about that now are becoming history. And they should not be. We should not be experiencing the same things that we're experiencing in 2020. So I hope and I believe that people like Rashad Robinson of Color of Change, and people like Crystal Applehawk of Illumina Native, and all these other people, Mark Bermuda Joseph, and Sonny, and Adam, and Sree, all of us are going to be the change that truly, truly makes this different. That we are going to use our talent and our voice and our platforms to call out the injustices that are happening, to speak forth truth, to be vulnerable and hold space and allow other people to be vulnerable, to be angry when we need to be angry, and to continue to, quite frankly, give voice to the things that are not right, and to speak that forth. And every single day wake up with some sort of way in which we are doing that. And I look forward. I hope people reach out. I want to work with them. I want people to come to Spectrum. It's not just a conversation. We want to arm you with tools of what to do. We don't have all the answers. We believe there are people out there that are smart, that are talented, that are doing work, and and together, all of us collectively can find the answers. And I'm just excited to continue to figure out ways to work with people that are like-minded, even people who are not. But maybe we will be able to change, and we'll figure out ways to do it. But I want to work with people that are committed to righting these wrongs and to bringing these injustices to light.
Keisha, you shared this article with me. Tell me about this piece, please.
Well, I just noticed that you were talking a lot about South Asian community and how everyone needs to do, how you were saying, and just in the midst of the conversation in the that was popping up. And I saw this today in the New York Times, how this man said, my business is going to burn down, but I understand what is going on in the supporter. So I shared that for you because a lot of South Asian community was talking about the racism and what you were sharing as well. And I don't know if you saw it today in the New York Times, but I found that interesting. It's like they're going to burn down it, but I understand why this needs. I understand this. He was angry and he was talking about this, and it was just interesting.
Yeah, he said, "Let my building burn. Justice needs to be served." That is so brave and strong of him to share that. And thank you for sharing that article with all of us. And Keisha, thank you for your leadership, and thank you for all you're doing in the business community to open their eyes and to share the opportunity with so many people. We're very grateful to you. Everyone, please follow Keisha Center, and please check out Spectrum Virtual. You can search that. The hashtag is Spectrum Virtual. Thank you. Let me go now to Sonny Slaughter. Sonny, thank you so much for your wisdom and insights and your empathy and sympathy. We go to you now.
Reaching out again, and I want to thank all of my New York Times Read Along family. I love you all, each and every one of you. I love the diversity of thought, perspective, culture, race, and how we really care about one another. And I am humbled and grateful. Keisha, thank you for your leadership, your information, all of your contributions to history, to the work, for uplifting everyone. I have shared your information on Twitter. I will continue to put that information out. I look forward to knowing you, growing with you, and changing the world with you. Adam, I shared your information and connected with you. I am so grateful for your words, your work, your constant communication with the world about the truth, and the facts do matter, and your lens for what is important for our future. I appreciate you and your baby and your family, and I keep you covered in my form of prayer. I pray, and I'm just grateful for you. Sree, I'm grateful for all of the platforms that allow individuals like myself to become connected to these great leaders, and for how we can share not just here in America, but really across the world. You give the world a lens into our thoughts, our perspectives, our feelings, even our crises right now. And with that, I want to say years ago, I had the opportunity to meet Harry Belafonte, and I have a TEDx talk that talks about what happened to my daughter, Adam. It really choked me up, what you said about the conversation with your daughter, because that's what my TED talk is about, my daughter, one of them. And sometimes the demons are in our house, but I don't have to worry about that. But I tell everything. But I want to say, when I met Harry Belafonte, oh my God, first I was like over the moon and thinking my mom was saying, oh, she is with Harry. And I'm saying, like, yeah, Mom, like the real one, Deo. But he said in a conversation that we had almost 2 hours, he said, what are you really willing to do for others? And this is the question that he asked me after I told him about things that gave me pause and pain and but his question gave me perspective and helped me to solidify purpose. What are you really willing to do for others? You think it's an easy question until you step into it. And when you step into it, it's heavy, because it's what are you really willing to do for others who can do nothing at all for you? Changing the world is a heavy lift, because we all come here differently. We all come here as individuals, and we are trying to get a collective movement to change the indignation, to change humanity, and to give those who have moments of inhumane treatment some dignity and courtesy and love and respect. So I wrote a quote, and I have posted it everywhere, but I'm going to read it today. It says, what doesn't just go away? What you close your eyes to doesn't just disappear. And what you remain silent about doesn't clear your conscience. When I wrote that quote, it was about one thing. But for years, it has become gloss and layer for so many things and so many experiences. Choose kindness, choose love, and at every opportunity, reach out to someone. You got to check on your strong people, because we walk around like everything is okay, and everything is not okay. It's not okay. I had 2 episodes of Bell's palsy. I didn't even know I was stressed. One side 1 year, following side the next year. And I felt like it was because I had held on to so much stuff for the last 18 years. I didn't realize that it caught up to me and it manifests in certain ways. So when people are burning and looting, I might not condone the practice, but I understand the pain. It's hard for a Black woman to carry all of this weight, and not just on my bones, but in my spirit, in my mind, and in my heart. I love you all. I am humbled by all of you, Sree, Keisha, Adam, all of our family. Rose, I'm sending you hugs and love too. And my New York Times family, and each of your families, because there's never a one victim. There's always others. Ronnie, I love you, girl. And thank you so much, Sree.
Before we let you go, Sonny, I need to ask about the flag behind you. Tell us about that, please.
So I'll be 52 years old, and that flag is 52 years old. It covered the casket of my uncle, my mother's brother, Jonathan. He was killed in Vietnam War. My mother was pregnant with me when he was murdered. He was decapitated by the Viet Cong, but not before he an entire regime. Um, and that flag means a lot because my grandfather was on the teletype at Philadelphia Naval Yard, and he stepped out to get coffee. And when he came back, the teletype was notifying him of the death of his own son. He was responsible for the notification of soldiers, but he got his own. They talked about it in the newspaper. So the flag went to my grandmother, and my mother died 2 days after her 49th birthday, 22 years ago. So the flag never made it to my mother. I'm the oldest. So I have the flag, the pins, and the scars. We are a family that serves. I finally put it in a box this year to remember him and all his sacrifice for this country. For sacrifice. My other uncle was murdered in the Navy in San Diego. He died on the 82, and I became a Navy wife and moved and was right in the same yard in San Diego. And my husband was at the time was on 76, the Independence. So sometimes trauma and the triggers are generational, and it is what it is. But I have that flag, and I let it rest comfortably, and it will go to my children next.
Thank you for sharing that story. I can't imagine the pain of a father finding out that his own son died, and then in a war that was so senseless, and that number 58,000 who died, that's a milestone that every American should know. And when this coronavirus death count was marching up to 58,000, it took 12 years for that 58,000 people to die, Americans to die senselessly in Vietnam. And it took 58,000 Americans died in 12 weeks. And that's the difference of that story. Thank you so much, Sunny, for sharing this. I want to tell everybody that Sunny has graciously agreed to also come on our New York Times read along tomorrow. For those of you who've never seen it, we read the New York Times out loud. I've been doing it for 5 years, sort of like a crazy person, 8 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Eastern every day, every Sunday, I'm sorry. And tomorrow we have a very special show. We have Sunny on the show, and we also have on the show Joe Stiglitz, the Nobel Prize winner in economics, Columbia professor, Mona Abaza, MD, who will take your medical questions. And that will be tomorrow, 8:30 to 10:30 on all these same platforms, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Please join us as we talk to Sunny about what's happening for the first half hour. Then Joe will be with us for an hour, and then Mona. And you will be able to talk about the news and share with the world again what is happening and trying to understand that. So thank you very much, Sunny. And now I'm going to go to our friend Adam Serwer and have Adam share his thoughts for us. Adam, to you.
Well, look, I mean, you know, the crazy thing about all those names is that you really could have kept going for a very long time. And it's just, you know, this is a problem that I think is it is so old that it seems unsolvable, but it's not. And on some level, we just need to accept that people who are given this kind of power, if you combine that kind of power, the power to take a life legally, with the kind of impunity that says you have a hard job, so you can never be accountable for what you do, then you end up with this sort of problem. And I think to keep that list of names from growing, to a point where already it's not as though we could remember all the names that we would need to remember, but to make it so that this is not such a common American occurrence in American life, we need to start thinking about the way that the kind of authority that we empower police to have, and making sure that that authority is commensurate with a level of accountability that ensures that people who would use that authority abusively cannot simply do so and then go on with their lives as if nothing has happened.
Thank you, Adam. Everyone, please follow Adam.
Wait 1 second. I just want to say thank you so much for having me on the show, and thank you so much, Keisha and Stony, for sharing and for your kind words about me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you for sharing your views and for the writing you do. I've been wanting to have you in this public forum for a couple of months now, because you really have informed me and helped me understand. Adam was a student at Columbia Journalism School, where I taught for 20 years, and he's now the teacher to me and so many other people. We salute you for that. And if I can share a very funny incident to do with Columbia, at all the graduations everywhere, they're always, as you know, keynote speakers, right? The famous person who gets the honorary degree gets to speak. At Columbia, only the president speaks, even though there might be famous people getting the honorary degree. When I graduated in 1993, a long time ago, one of the people who got an honorary degree was Harry Belafonte. And he, so you have to just get the award and sit down, but not Harry. He pushed aside the president, and in front of everybody, he started saying, "Deo, Deo." Everybody went nuts. It was the most amazing moment. And we're graduating. We don't know what the heck is going on. And we just had such a great time. And it just showed that it just brought so many things together, that man, we wanted to hear from him and hear his voice in many more ways, but we were grateful. And I did also have the honor to meet him and spend some time with him and his family. And I've never forgotten that. A worldwide phenomenon that he is. But I must let you all go. I have some housekeeping to do with everybody else. But thank you. I'm so grateful to Keisha at Serwer and at Sunny_Slaughter, and check out sunnyslaughter.com as well. And we'll see you all soon. We hope you will be kind enough to come back on our show in the near future and share your wisdom. And please tell me anytime you want someone to have a space, either on this show or on my Twitter feed or on my Facebook. I'm there for you. We must all pay down our privilege. Thank you very much. Good night.
Keisha, call me.
I'll call you. Thank you. Stay safe, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with me, for being by my side as we read these incredible comments, as we understood. Pradnya says, ending with a laugh. Well done. Susanna says, excellent show. Thank you, Susanna, watching from Mexico. So many people are just commenting. I'm so grateful. Thank you for articulating the voice of the oppressed. Thank you, everybody. And so a couple of reminders. We do this show because we want to help you. And we do the show every single day. The time varies, but we do it every day for you. I want to tell you about our show tomorrow. We have a very special show tomorrow in the morning. You're going to meet Sunny again, and then you will get to meet you'll get to meet our friend Joe Stiglitz, who will be sharing his comments and thoughts on what's happening in the election process. And then you'll meet Mona Abaza, who will answer your medical questions. So we have a full 2-hour show tomorrow, 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. That's 12:30 GMT and 6 p.m. IST, or Indian Standard Time. We're very grateful to our friends at Scroll.in, one of India's best news, culture, and analysis websites. By the way, more jazz than you would expect in an Indian website, but do check that out. And then in the evening, my usual 9 p.m. Eastern positivity show. We will try to be positive in the middle of all the chaos. And we have a special guest, Positively Inclusive, with Dr. Stephanie K. Johnson. She's a professor, author, and speaker. Her brand new book, which launches June 2nd on Tuesday, is called Inclusify. And the book is inclusifybook.com. And you can please join us tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You know someone who would benefit from that conversation, so please join us on all those platforms. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. You can find all my conversations on youtube.com/Sreenet. Please sign up. Please subscribe. It will make a difference to me to know that you're watching, and I appreciate you very much for doing that. Please share, and please, everyone, tag a friend who would benefit from this conversation right now on Facebook. They can watch the recording. As soon as this is over, this will restart and you can watch the recording. So please make sure that you tag some friends who could use some enlightenment, could use some insights, could use some wisdom that we all learned today. I am so honored to be able to have this moment with all of you, and I'm so grateful to all of you. Now, before I go, I also want to tell you that I have lost the job twice in a public way, and it was very painful, and I know what turmoil that unleashes, but I cannot imagine what it means to have 34 million Americans out of work and hundreds of millions of people out of work around the world. And I want to say that the only little thing I can do is to share the expertise I allegedly have. And so, working with my friends at Muckrack Academy, we are launching a free Fundamentals of Social Media course for journalists, public relations professionals, and everyone. That's right, everyone of any age can benefit. It starts in June. It's a free certification program. Please go to mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. Tag a friend, share this, take a screenshot. It's completely free. They will learn something. I promise, no matter what level you are, I promise you'll learn a little or a lot. I will learn. My friend Linda Bernstein and I are putting this together, and we have learned so much along the way. But thank you to Muckrack Academy for sponsoring this show by having that program available to all of you in the world for free. We have 3,000 people who've already signed up. I'm so grateful to everyone who signed up. I can't wait to bring you the program. It will be ready, and then it's a free certification. The address, again, very simple, mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. And with that, a reminder that my team at Digimentors is available to you if you would like to put together any kind of program, a virtual event, a conference you want to take online, we can help you. You want to have your own talk show, we can help you. We can be 10% of your production team or 110% of your production team. And what happened this morning is that my team helped put together an event for 100,000 teachers. That's right, 100,000 registered teachers. We gathered them and we did events in English, Spanish, and Arabic. And that was my team, Digimentors, working with the great organizers to put that together. We hope you will watch that. You can go onto my feed and see it, t4.education, to understand how we did a 5-hour conference. Don't cancel your conference. Don't postpone it without talking to me, whether it's in person or not. Reach out to me, Sree at Sree.net. You see the address right there. So please go to YouTube and subscribe to Sreenet. Please email me if you have any questions. If I can help you with anything, I promise to pay down my privilege as someone who benefits every day off the pain of Black and brown folks from generations and generations and centuries. So thank you very much. And the final thing, to end on a laugh, I have to show you my WhatsApp alert. So this is not a WhatsApp group. You know, there are a lot of racist WhatsApp groups. That's not what this is. If you have an iPhone, just point your camera at this and you will be able to get an alert every time I go live. It is not, repeat, not a group, just a gentle alert when we're live. because we have so many great shows that we have done over the past few months. It's now 80 straight days that we have done this show, and I can do it only because of our unbelievable producers. We want to thank Rose Horowitz 31 on Twitter, at Rose Horowitz 31, and also big thank you to Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon on Twitter. Thank you all for watching. I say namaste. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your love. I could not have done this without all of you being here day in and day out. So many great comments, and thank you for coming here and being with us. Very moving, says Laurie. Thank you. And Steve says, I'm not crying, you're crying. Well, you're right, I am crying, and I'm laughing and smiling and thinking of all of you. Please stay safe, everybody, and still wash those hands and don't touch your face. You saw me throughout the show touching my face. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.